Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is another edition of Ars Boni in English. I'm very proud to introduce Emmanuel Nwobodo to you, who is the president of the Federation of African Law Students. The abbreviation of this association is FALAS, FALAS. And the goal of this association, as far as I understand it, is very similar to ELSA and also to ELSA, both of them whom we had already in this conversation here. So it's a group of law students of Africa bringing themselves together, unifying their approaches on how education and how legal research and legal discourse at universities should look like. And the purpose of this conversation, in my view, is to get another insight and overview about the situation in Africa when it comes to COVID-19 related issues of legal education, legal teaching, and legal research. Emmanuel, I'm really happy to have you here, and I'm really proud to have you here. Both of us need to thank the fact that we have a common friend here who is the president of ELSA in Hong Kong, because he was so kind to bring us together here. Let's start perhaps by asking you a very simple question, which is, what exactly is the Federation of African Law Students, and what are you doing in this federation?
Oh, thank you so much. Before answering that question, I must first and foremost put forward my unreserved gratitude to you, Professor Nicholas, for having me on this very, of course, significant interview to discuss the Federation of African Law Students and, of course, studying law from the African perspective. And, of course, my warm gratitude is out also to the president of Asia Law Students, by extension, the Hong Kong president, for being the hub network to bring us together. And so to cut the chase, basically,
so Raujet, we send you greetings.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
To cut the chase, basically, the Federation of African Law Students is a forward-looking Pan-African Students Association that serves as the apex unifying organization for all law students in Africa, of course, with recognition from the African Bar Association and a host of other regional, international, legal, paralegal, and non-legal organizations. FALAS currently enjoys membership from over 40 countries in Africa, and we are geared towards building a unified, coordinated network of African law students equipped with the requisite exposure and knowledge, who are committed to the development of the continent through connecting ideas, connecting persons and resources. We have over time found institutes like ELSA, ALSA, and of course the Australian law students in this same drive. And this informed the need for us to come together to say we want to have an apex body like that could speak for law students in Africa just last year. And so basically our history spans back as a golden one, because it started during my time as the president, the national president of the Law Students Association of Nigeria. During my time as the president of the Law Students Association of Nigeria, we had the privilege to speak for law students within the country, Nigerians specifically, and we had the privilege of engaging beyond the four walls of Nigeria. We engaged the International Bar Association with the president at the time, Horacio Bernardex Necto, who was the president at the time. And so that engagement attracted law student leaders across various African countries to
That's a pity, because this looks very much like an internet disruption, and I'm afraid that it's
come together. We want to have looking at hello.
Emmanuel, there was a disruption of the internet connection, but you are back online now. Can you hear me? Emmanuel, can you hear me again? There was a disruption of the connection, which was stable until then, but we lost you. Are you back?
All right.
Are you
Yeah,
back? Yeah.
I'm back. I'm
Okay.
back. It's sorry about that. I think that's part of the African perspective of studying law. So looking at that, these our engagements with the International Bar Association, the African Bar Association saw the attraction of law student leaders from other countries, which informed the decision for us to come together to say we want to put up the Federation of African Law Students. And so we believe that if we do not speak for ourselves as a budding generation of leaders and lawyers, no one will speak for us. And that informed our decision to create on the 20th of August, precisely, over 14 members African country. We held the African Leadership Convergence and Summit, which saw to the signing of an accord to bet what is today known as the Federation of African Law Students. And so currently we've broken into over 30 countries, and we're negotiating with about 12 countries as against the 54 African countries that we have on board. And so that's the brief history about us. And of course, I'm privileged to be the first executive president of our noble association. Yeah. And I see to the day-to-day running of the association. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. What are the main activities of the association at the moment? So are you doing similar things like ELSA or ALSA, meaning, for example, organizing moot courts or organizing conferences and other additional content-related events in addition to the regular curriculum of law students and law studies? Or what is the main perspective of your presidency at the moment?
Okay, so as an association, our core values are based on promotion and protection of the interest of law students in Africa. And of course, this is done through connecting Nigeria's resources and of course, persons which advance the interest of law students in Nigeria. And so basically, currently, we are looking at, of course, contributing to the protection of the rule of law on one hand. We're looking at advancing the training, the training of law students on the other hand. And from these two perspectives, we've quite done a lot, and we are still doing a lot. We partnered with the ESQ Lawyers Practical Academy. It's a renowned academy of law students, of lawyers, budding lawyers in Nigeria, and of course, renowned lawyers in Africa, who are geared and passionate towards the advancement of legal education, because we strongly believe that the impact of the COVID-19 has accelerated the need for us to diversify our learning against what the tradition ordinarily is. And so through that training program, we've been able to explore other measures of emerging areas of law, like the ICT. During the pandemic, for instance, we had engagements on capital markets, the intellectual property law, that's the IPL. We had to dig more into ICT areas, emerging areas that from the African perspective, we were not so diversified in. And when it comes to governance, we also are very passionate about governance, because as you may know, governance is a key issue in Africa. Corruption, and when we look back at some of the issues that bedevil our progress or clog the wheels of our progress in Africa, you cannot take away the element of some corruption and, of course, good governance, advocacy for good governance. And so FALAS plays a middle role in ensuring that as an umbrella body for law students, we speak up when it's required for us to do. We vociferate, we stand for the voices of the unheard, and we stand for what should be, of course, what should be known as good governance in Africa. And so for issues like recently, the Twitter ban, of course, in Nigeria, which clogged, of course, the freedom of expression in Nigeria, was one of the issues we took out on the campaign. We've led campaigns in relation to the transmission of ease of transmission of governance in like the case in Uganda. And of course, similar cases in certain African countries as well. And so we are diversified. In Africa here, like every other clime, certain peculiarities exist. And for Africa, what we advocate is what is peculiar to us. And so we find good governance peculiar to us. We find advancement of legal education in the areas that are not so well taught in Africa peculiar to us. And more importantly, we find the advancement of legal education to meet up with contemporary realities peculiar to us. We're also moving forward to ensure that beyond the scope of Africa, we board connections with other continental associations. Like I said initially, from the Law Students Association of Nigeria, we over time enjoyed partnership with the IBA under the presidency of Horeasu Benedict Necto. We extended this, however, to the Federation of African Law Students with the current president who spans from Africa. And this is one of the areas we have been channeling our energies in ensuring that for law students in Africa, we give the very best. And my administration is one focused on, firstly, building the foundation, because we're just a newly founded organization. We're focusing on building our foundation so strongly, with negotiating with more countries to break into more countries as possible, and to also drive home the aims and objectives of why the Federation of African Law Students is an association for the future.
See, and you said that you have 14 member states that founded the association and that you are growing quickly. Is there any sorry, is that correct?
Yeah.
First, and
Yeah,
second, how are you negotiating and how are you meeting each other? Is it virtually, or do you travel to meet each other?
Oh, beautiful. I feel it is one of the golden opportunities the pandemic presented to us. The opportunity to get to meet each other beyond the distance that may clog our very ease of transportation. We actually meet virtually. Our meetings are done virtually with our country representatives. We have virtual meetings from time to time as stipulated in our court that binds us as an association. So these meetings basically are virtual.
I see. And also legal education at the moment is both virtual and real, or are you back on campus, all of you who are studying at the moment in Nigeria?
Okay, so certain peculiarities exist in certain various regions, and of course, various countries over here in Africa. For Kenya, I'm aware for Kenya, for Tanzania, and for Zimbabwe, we're having issues of data, access to data and access to electricity, and we are working with our country representatives in those countries to ensure that we advocate the ease of data and, of course, electricity to the government of those various countries through the Federation of African Law Students. So electricity is an issue, power supply is an issue in countries like Kenya, in countries like Tanzania, in countries like Zimbabwe. Students are unable to access legal education at home, as opposed to what is attainable in South Africa. South Africa currently, from the reports from my country representative, our country representative in South Africa, we have the students still studying from home. So students are studying from home in South Africa, and it's because over there they are more inclined to electricity and, of course, the access to data. And so it's more of an express learning process for them from the home to school virtual learning process. And of course, in Uganda is under restriction from the best of my knowledge currently. And so they're still under restriction and they are experiencing online classes to the best of my knowledge. For Nigeria is peculiar to Ethiopia. So we have a dual learning process in Nigeria. What is attainable here is we have online classes that are co-mixed with physical classes. And so when we come online, when we go to classes, we learn for a short period of time, and this period of time are intertwined so we can experience or we can imbibe the culture of social distancing. And so if given, for instance, a class is made of 100 persons, the classes are being splitted into, let's say, 4 classes for 20 persons each, right? In which those 20 persons are being taught for a particular period of time. And when they go back to their respective houses, the learning can continue on other aspects that were not properly taught in classes. So it's more of a dual learning process here in Nigeria. In Nigeria, we're giving both the online materials to go home and learn, and of course, we are taught in classes, but these classes are being splitted. And so that's the case for Ethiopia also, and for I think Zambia as well. But the case for Kenya is quite a very interesting case. And without prejudice to other countries, it's something that I want to give them the kudos for. Kenya currently changed their curriculum to a new form, which is quite the experimental aspect of law. And all thanks to the Strathmore Law School of Kenya. And so Kenya diversified in terms of being more experimental through the virtual process. So they had more theoretical than virtual, but this more theoretical area at the time before the pandemic. But the pandemic offered them an opportunity to, beyond the virtual learning, also go experimental in their training of law, in the teaching of law, so to speak. So we have classes in, of course, Kenya, in as much as they're quite still limited with access to data and electricity, wherein the teachers take their time to virtually teach students on the experimental aspect of law. So this is quite the perspective from the Kenya law school, so to speak. And of course, from a general African perspective, we cannot deny the fact that studying law has been quite challenged with internet connectivity, generally speaking, one of which you've seen today in my interview with you and some of the network hitches we had. And so the Federation of African Law Students is still hell-bent on ensuring we negotiate the right architecture and the right environment to study law in Africa generally, to ensure that the practice of law and the study of law is one seen to be at its best in Africa.
So let me come back to your example from Nigeria, that a class of 100 students is split up into different subclasses, and some of them are taught online and some of them are taught physically on campus. Is this something which was introduced because of COVID-19, or was this already developed before COVID-19? That would be the first question. And the second one, are you now going back to a system which was in place before the pandemic, or are you still in some way in a pandemic mode, or are you now in a post-pandemic mode, taking some of the lessons learned out of the pandemic back to the regular studies?
All right. If I got your first question correctly, you were trying to ask if this the new system in Nigeria was introduced post or pre-COVID-19. Well, the new system we have in Nigeria, the splitted classes, was introduced as a result of the COVID-19. And of course, that has also played too advantageous a role in easing the stress and burden for students to get to study more. Of course, I wouldn't also take away the disadvantages of that comes along with that, because for some students, it's an opportunity for them to be more reluctant in studies. Anyways, but it provides an opportunity for students to study more, imbibing the culture of a safe practice. And it is not one we intend to lose anytime soon in Nigeria, given that the vaccination process is still ongoing in Nigeria. And of course, we are still plagued with the COVID-19 in some parts of Africa, as the case may be. And so it's one we don't intend to lose anytime soon. It's one we intend to incorporate in our system for as long as the pandemic stands. And so on the second question, I similarly did not get that correctly. I don't mind. I crave your indulgence to come again.
Yeah, so the question was what the status at the moment is. So whether you are still in the pandemic mode, or whether you are returning into some kind of regular studies already in Nigeria when it comes to law studies. Is it still in some kind of unordinary way of teaching because of the pandemic, or are you returning to something which was already known before the pandemic started?
It's still we're still in the pandemic mode.
Yeah. So unfortunately, Emmanuel, I'm again losing you. Are you still here?
Yeah, I'm still here.
You're still here. Okay, there was again the connection fading away, but you are back. Okay, you're back. Wonderful. Okay, so then one more question on this, Emmanuel. I understood, if I understood you correctly, you are saying that this hybrid system of education does have disadvantages, but it also has advantages. So what, in your view, are the most important advantages for the students who are represented by your organization, and perhaps also for the professors? Is there any advantage in the new system of education?
Right. Right. For the students, the advantages that are presented in this new system, like I briefly highlighted initially, is the fact that we are presented with an opportunity to really diversify. And by the diversification, I mean, for instance, when we have these splitted classes, it presents us with more time to really learn from home, to really greet the materials we're given online, to engage the materials we're given online, to ask questions even beyond the convenience time for those lecturers. Because the online platforms we have from our WhatsApp group, from our Telegrams group, avails us the opportunity to, even during evenings, non-learning hours, engage our lecturers. And whenever they see questions coming in from us, they want to also respond, because it is their responsibility to pass on knowledge. And of course, it is our responsibility to react to knowledge as students of law. So beyond the learning hours, it presents us more time to learn and engage our lecturers. This is what the pandemic has presented us with an opportunity for, because the online learning literally has no time limit, so to speak. But the classroom has its own time limit. So it's an advantage on the part of the student from the Nigerian perspective. On the part of the lecturer, I think it's more of a disadvantage. I'm working from home. You're really tied to no significant time frame to stop teaching. A lecturer comes to class, a professor of law comes to class, he teaches for as long as for a time frame possible, and goes back home and still engages the students who may have questions to ask from what has been taught in class. So it's quite a dual, more stressful system on the part of the lecturers, but on the part of the students, it's quite one that has its significant advantages, which I think law students are exploring. And of course, I think FALAS is currently also seeing to the need of ensuring that we preach to as many bodies as possible to have a uniform system in Africa.
I see.
Yeah.
Emmanuel, if I may, I would like to come back to one of the remarks that you made before about your association, because you said that one of the activities that you had undertaken was a protest against the blocking of Twitter in Nigeria. And I also read on this, I think on Facebook, on your Facebook presence, which is, in my view, interesting for our European audience for several reasons. The first one, of course, this is per se an interesting legal question, whether a service like Twitter should be and can be, and under which conditions can be blocked. And I would very much appreciate if you could give us a little bit of an insight what's really happening here. And then it's also interesting for me because for a European reader, at least, it's rather uncommon that a law student association makes such a strong statement on an issue of general politics. So could you perhaps elaborate a little bit more about what this Twitter blocking thing is about and why a law students association should be concerned about this, in particular in times of a pandemic?
All right, thank you so much for that beautiful question. FALAS of course, provides an illuminating perspective on how law students should operate in a society anxious to embrace democracy in an era of hope and optimism, of course, in Africa. And of course, like I highlighted initially, Africa is yet crippled by past attitudes of weak and injuries, of corruptions, and of course, redundancies of primordial ethnic settlements, which Nigeria, of course, has been a case study, being the most populated country in Africa. And so we, in the light of what has happened with the Twitter saga, quite unfortunately in Nigeria, we're one of the largest users of Twitter. And of course, young minds like ourselves, of course, from FALAS and of course, non-law student, non-legal organizations express themselves through the use of Twitter. And so we saw that to trample upon something that we stand for, and that is the protection of the rule of law, which is too often violated in Africa, which is too often threatened. And of course, the security of the security of personnel, which is too often a case study in Africa. And so it's one that concerns our aims and objectives, something that we stand for. And that is why, as an association, we took it upon ourselves, beyond other organizations that may want to speak in that regards, to speak for something that's significant. The case study for us in Nigeria is one quite technical. I cannot say exactly the justification of the government on the Twitter ban, but what stands significant to us is the fact that a part of the African Charter on Human Rights had been violated. A part of the African Charter of the Human Rights, which speaks on the freedom of the expression, right? Which speaks on the right to expression, the right of human dignity and the right to expression, was violated. And of course, Nigeria is a treaty member of the African Charter of Human Rights. Like I said, human rights is quite one interesting aspect of one interesting case study in Nigeria, because it's one that contemporarily is being brought to the limelight. It's one that is contemporarily being threatened. And so it wouldn't make sense to have an association that stands for prospective legal minds in Africa without, of course, seeking to protect the rule of law, which is too often threatened in Africa. And that is why we saw the need to speak when it was needful to speak in that regards. We're not left without, of course, some protecting bodies. Like I told you, we have the African Bar Association standing, of course, with us as duly recognized. We are duly recognized by them. And of course, as you may know, the African Bar Association is a conglomerate of lawyers, renowned lawyers across Africa, who are ready to take up cases of oppression, human violation, should the need arise. We also have ties with the Nigerian Bar Association. More importantly, our local chapter here, the local national body here, which is the Law Student Association of Nigeria, has a very good, strong tie with the Nigerian Bar Association, all thanks to the leadership of Olumide Akpata of the Nigerian Bar Association. And of course, the leadership of Hannibal Uwaifu of the African Bar Association. So these twin associations coming together serves more or less like a protecting mechanism for us, we student body. But it doesn't take away the fact that of us not speaking for human rights.
I see. And are you discussing this case in your classes on law school, in the law school? So are there classes on the Twitter ban happening at the moment in the law school, or is all this only happening outside law school as an extracurricular activity?
Oh, beautiful. Well, basically, contemporary issues like this informs contemporary ideas on how we can marshal out the instrumentality of the law to provide solution on issues like this. And so the firm beam of discussions for us, if you look at it in the real sense, apart from the Twitter ban, we've had other issues that had informed beam of discussions for us, looking at the requisite law that had been violated, the requisite provision of the law that ought to be complied with, what ought to be done as opposed to what is done. It informs basis for us to even get to diversify and learn more in relation to these laws, as the case may be. So they inform discussions for us in classrooms, in our seminar workshops, in symposiums we organize, and of course leadership training and etc.
Okay, I see. Okay, Emmanuel, I would like to ask you what the future brings to your association. So when you look into the future for the next year or two, and when we hope that the pandemic will hopefully be less severe than it is at the moment, what are you planning to do as an individual and as a head of the organization in the future to further develop it?
Well, I would like to start from the individual perspective. For me, the journey has been quite interesting. I would say that I've been quite involved in a couple of things that would not allow me be so certain about where I see myself. But basically, I'm one who wants to, through leadership, ensure that I advocate a better standard of living in my society. I'm one who wants to see that in every organization I am, I want to bring value. I want to bring value and change the status quo of what my organization has to offer. And so because of that line I've been trading, I think, of course, I'm a believer, I'm a Christian. So I think God decides, man only predicts. So I wouldn't speak much for myself, but I know that I'm currently my leadership at FALAS. And then for the association, quite an interesting one. The reason why we formed the association in the first place, we came together to form the association. I mean, over 14 African countries as a member state, is to, of course, speak for law students, to advocate the cost of learning in Africa, which has been quite an issue, because the issue of our curriculums here is quite an issue. Curriculum is quite an issue here. Some of our curriculums in some African countries are outdated. And so.
Okay, sorry to say that unfortunately Emmanuel disappeared now, which is a pity. I will try whether he's trying to reconnect again. But in my view, this is already one of the most important lessons of this whole interview here, that it is so difficult to have internet connection, which obviously makes it difficult to do remote teaching. He's coming back. I see him here at least. Hi, Emmanuel.
Hello.
Hi, I'm back. You are back. We can't see you yet, but we can hear you. Oh, now we
Right.
can also see you. Okay. So it was about the
Yeah.
future of the association, the future plans of the
Right.
association.
Yeah. So I was saying, part of the objectives of why FALAS is standing is because we want to see a generation of lawyers who are defined in legal training, and not just legal training, who are redefined for the advocacy of good governance, who are redefined to challenge the status quo in Africa. And we believe that this is what FALAS brings to the table. Of course, currently, there is a lot of partnership in progress, which we are working on, like the partnership with the African Union, the partnership with, of course, the ECOWAS body, which we are still trying to negotiate. And the essence of this partnership is, and so that we can have law students and youths basically can have an opportunity to advocate the cause of law students, and not just law students, but youths in Africa, in these platforms, in the AU platforms, in and the ECOWAS platforms, in relation to the legal education, and like I mentioned, of course, good governance, And so the future is quite a very bright one for us, because it's one that we dream to be. We dream, and we are currently working on it to be very, very porous. We see a future of over 54 countries, or 54 African nations coming together to stand for one cause, a united cause. We see a future of a voice united for Africa, by Africans, and of course, with Africa. We see a future for FALAS, run by students, for students, and by students alone. And so these are many more, and some of the future we see for FALAS, beyond just being a body for of course, equipping them law students with the wherewithal to tackle contemporary issues. We see a future for FALAS being a body that engages in corporate social responsibility. This is something we've started already. We did a charity reach out lately, I think in the last 2 months, to various homes in various African countries. It's something that we believe in. It's something we strongly stand in, because we strongly believe that advocacy transcends way beyond legal education. It transcends to how we are able to improve the life of our neighbor, our next door neighbor, so to speak. And so this is something we see as a future, FALAS expanding as a future for Africa.
I see, Emmanuel, and I thank you very much for this brilliant overview. I think we got a lot of insight about your perspective and about your organization's perspective. Is there anything that you still want to add, something that I did not ask you that you would like to share with our audience?
Well, I personally, there's nothing basically, but I think this is just an opportunity for me to get to speak to every young winning law student out there in Africa. Of course, I know we are not just having viewers in Africa from Europe, but law students not just in Africa, but Africans in diaspora, that Africa is coming. And I strongly believe that FALAS is that dream of Africa, to bet the new Africa. We will be emerging, and wherever you are, of course, a law student indigenous to Africa or staying diaspora, there is a hope for Africa. We are coming, and by God's grace, there is a new Africa. And so it also serves me the platform to call out to organizations, international organizations, paralegal and legal and non-legal organizations, as a new founded association that desires partnership. We are very much open to partnering with organizations that may want to partner with us in terms of what we stand for, our aims and objectives, to redefine the legal architecture in Nigeria, and to speak on issues of governance in Africa. So thank you very much for the opportunity, Professor Nicholas. And
thank you.
It will be a great time to have myself here once again.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you to our listeners. It was a pleasure to have you with us. Stay connected with us, stay interested, and in particular, stay as healthy or become as healthy as possible, as quickly as possible. All the best and take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Cheers.
Wonderful. We are off.